Capitalism, as we know it, is not a free market, but a state-distorted hierarchy, a spine bent out of shape. A genuinely free society would dissolve both the state oppression and economic domination, flushing them out like kidneys purifying blood. So in this video, what I'm going to be doing is arguing on behalf of libertarianism, and I'm going to be using Matua Roderick T. Long in order to make my case, as well as the anime Cyborg 009, which happens to be one of my most favorite anime of all time. So let us begin. So Matua Roderick T. Long argues that what we now call libertarianism was originally part of the anti-authoritarian left, not the right, like an older skeleton buried beneath newer flesh, so to speak. Think 19th century radicals, anti-capitalist, anti-state, anti-privilege. So his key move is this: the real enemy, he would argue, or he argues, is not the state versus the market, but systems of domination upheld by coercion and privilege, like toxins carried through the bloodstream. So, for long, the state props up corporate power, subsidies, patents, bailouts, barriers to entry, like an IV drip feeding a diseased organ. Capitalism, as we know it, is not a free market, but a state-distorted hierarchy, a spine bent out of shape. A genuinely free society would dissolve both the state oppression and economic domination, flushing them out like kidneys purifying blood. So this reframes libertarianism as anti-imperialist, refusing to let power colonize the body, anti-corporate privilege, rejecting tumors of concentrated advantage, pro-worker autonomy, muscles moving by their own will, and deeply compatible with leftist goals. Why? So, number two, and this is my argument, why the international left should care. So, from Matua Long's pair of eyes, the international left often makes a strategic mistake, like biting its own tongue. It treats the state as a tool of liberation rather than as a structure that reproduces domination, a jaw that keeps clenching. The long sort of style critique, if you will, of that. So, welfare states can often soften suffering, but also stabilize unjust systems, like painkillers masking a deeper wound. State socialism risks replacing one hierarchy with another, swapping one skeleton for another without healing the marrow. Regulation often entrenches incumbents. Big corporations chew comfortably with well-protected teeth. So, the libertarian left alternative: decentralization, number one. Power diffused like oxygen through lungs. Worker self-organization, so hands coordinating without a master nerve, so to speak. Mutual aid, circulation without blockage, and free association without coercive hierarchy, so bodies moving without chains in the joints. So this is my argument. If the international left's goal is to abolish domination, it must oppose all institutionalized coercion, including the state, that heavy hand pressing on the chest. So number three, enter Cyborg 009, which is a narrative of coercion and liberation. So the setup is this: the cyborgs are created by the Black Ghost organization, carved and rewired like flesh under a cold scalpel. Black Ghost is a fusion of state-like power, military domination, a clenched fist, so to speak, and corporate power, weapons, industry, profit motive, teeth grinding for gain. This is exactly what Matua Long critiques. not state versus market, but state-corporate collusion as a single organism of domination, a monstrous body feeding on others. Number 4, the cyborgs as a libertarian left agent. So each cyborg is forcibly transformed, is turned into capital military property, escapes and forms a voluntary collective. And this mirrors Matua Long's ideal society. So what they represent. So 009, Joe Shimamura, is sort of like moral agency reclaimed. The team, decentralized cooperation across borders, and Dr. Gilmore, knowledge used for liberation, not domination. Healing hand instead of a cutting blade. I like to think of Dr. Gilmore as the embodiment, the personification of a world without IP laws, when you think about it. So they are, quote, a state, non-hierarchical, transnational resistance network, like a body that has expelled the parasite and relearned how to move. Number 5, Black Ghost. So, the enemy sort of Matua Long identifies. So, Black Ghost isn't just evil, it's anatomically precise. It represents war profiteering, feeding on bloodshed, and technocratic control, a brain severed from empathy, human beings treated as resources, centralized power insulated from accountability. This aligns with Matua Long's critique that modern capitalism is inseparable from militarism and state privilege, like two organs sharing the same poisoned bloodstream. So, this aligns with Matua Long's critique that modern capitalism is inseparable from militarism and state privilege. Like two organs sharing the same poison bloodstream centrally. We had technical difficulties, so I'm having to re-go over things. So in other words, the villains are not the market, so to speak. The villains are coercive systems that corrupt both state and market, like infection spreading through tissue. So this is sort of the, I guess you could say, the sort of synthesis stripped to bare bone and nerve. So the traditional sort of left framing, at least post Vladimir Lenin. Problem, capitalism, a diseased organ. Solution, state intervention, surgery by the same failing hands. Long's libertarian left. So problem, coercive hierarchy, state and corporate privilege, capitalism, a full-body illness. A solution, voluntary, decentralized cooperation, healing from within cell by cell. Or as I like to say, a new body entirely. And so, Cyborg 009 illustrates, liberation does not come from seizing Black Ghost, wearing the monster's skin, so to speak. It comes from escaping and dismantling its logic entirely, like purging poison from the blood. This is the argument fully formed, sort of in a succinct manner. So, putting it all together, the international left should embrace libertarianism because its deepest aim, abolishing domination, is undermined by reliance on the state, which structurally reproduces hierarchy like a chronic disease, as Roderick T. Long ensures, who argues genuine liberation requires dismantling both state coercion and state-enabled economic privilege, draining the system of its toxins. Cyborg 009 dramatizes this insight. The cyborgs are victims of a unified system of political and economic domination. Black Ghost, their bodies taken and repurposed, and their freedom emerges not through capturing power, but through forming a voluntary, decentralized collective, a new, living body that resists all imposed hierarchy. No reira, tēnā koutou, Det är något utav gator.